Okay, hello, I'm Matthias Maschek and I'm from Lost in the Garden. We're a small studio, we're 4 people, 2 developers, 2 graphic designers. And we built our first game in the last 3 years. It's called LIGHTFIELD. It's a flying racing game with parkour elements and a lot of exploration in medium-sized worlds, I would say. Yeah. And at the beginning, we developed it originally for consoles. So it was on Xbox and PlayStation at launch last year, and this year we went to Steam. But I ain't gonna talk about Steam. What I want to talk today about is what it was for us to go on consoles. So we were a new studio, we had no idea what it means to go on consoles except hearing at talks like this about what consoles are and how the development works. So since we were a new studio, it took us a long time to get dev kits. So we had to found the company, that took a while, and then we were founded, and we could apply for the indie things within the Sony and Microsoft, and then it took us about I think 3/4 of a year until we received the dev kits. But we couldn't sit around bored, so we started development on the game anyway. And I mean, we knew how consoles work, so they are not too different if you work with Unity. So we just developed, and we're quite sure that we know what we're doing with the game. Technical wise, it gonna work. That was our idea behind it. So what we had was already a full playable game on PC. It had a few interesting things in there, like hot swappable split screen multiplayer that is gonna be really important later on. So whenever you're in the game, anyone can press a button on the controller and he joins the game, and can press another button and just drops out of the game again. So we're confident that all of that will run also on consoles, and that's true. Actually, it was quite performant and everything worked, but we were surprised by some really high-level stuff on consoles that we didn't expect that's so complex. And all of what I'm gonna talk about today is non-NDA stuff, because when you develop for consoles, you're gonna sign NDAs and you're not allowed to talk about anything, how it works actually. And this is why it's so hard to actually start with console development, because you don't get information on Google or anywhere. And but what I'm gonna talk about today is what you can actually see if you only start the console and press around in the console. What we completely missed, but that's actually there for everyone to see. What we're surprised at the beginning was consoles have users, and they have a lot of users, and they have a complex user system. Maybe that's something we just overlooked, how complex that works. It's a little bit different on each consoles, but it is there. You always have to sign in. So every user that plays on a console has a user account, even if there's no one signed in with their online services. When you play, whenever you press a button on a controller, it asks you who is that person playing. That can be a guest user. You might have seen that. Whenever you press something on a PlayStation or Xbox, it asks you, who are you? And we didn't factor it in. We had one more or less, let's call it virtual user, that was accessing all the background features like high scores, save games and all that stuff. But we didn't think about that there might be more than one at the same time or at different times. Didn't matter. We didn't factor it in. So we had to change a lot of core code that we have this concept of multiple users. And that also goes down for save games. We had one save game. But now we realized, okay, 5 people can play the same thing on the console. So we have to be able to load 5 different save games. And then again, we come back there, we're split screen. So a second player can join at any time. So the second player also needs his save game because he might complete achievements, which you have to save again. So you have to load all the save games at the same time, and we had one weird monolithic singleton save game, and that wasn't supported. So don't be us. Have flexible save game that supports multiple users, if you have something like that in your game, of course. Yeah, and then the crazy stuff happened. We have replays in our game. So we have ghosts, so when you fly a lap in our game, it's a racing game, record what you're flying, we upload it to a server, you download it again, other players download it, and you can just learn from them, compete against them, whatever. Classic replay system. We thought that's gonna be not that hard to do technical on the technical side, and it wasn't hard to do on the technical side. The problem is the legal side. Because if you ever play the game with replays that are more than just moving characters on a console, you might realize they treat it as user-generated content. And that gets you to the point that you have to support a couple of things. First, users have to sign an Euler, which isn't that hard, but you have to write it up, so you have to inform the players what are you gonna do with their data, with what they just did. Where does it being stored? All that stuff has to go into this legal document. You have to write that, we had to check it with our lawyer if that's correct, then we had to have it translated in all the languages that we support, and we also used a special service that are specialized in legal translations. That's always a little bit more expensive than normal translation. So that's the first thing, and every user has to accept that. And again, every user has to accept that. If you play split screen, every user in split screen has to accept the Euler before you can do anything with replays. Very similar, age restrictions. Parents have to be able to block the access to user-generated content for their children, which is okay. You can just ask, okay, is this user old enough? All right, but then we have split screen again. The parent plays some laps, there are ghosts flying around everywhere in the world. His child comes over and presses a button on a second controller. The child joins the game instantly, but there are ghosts all over the place the child is not allowed to see. So we have instantly hot swap all the ghosts that are on the track at that moment and replace it with data or with displays that the child is allowed to see, which is not user-generated content, but content we deliver with the game. Because it's not allowed to see ghosts. So stuff like that, and that took us a long time to implement, to get all this in the workflow in there. And you have to have reporting. So because someone could do something bad. So we have trails behind the ships. So maybe someone could paint bad pictures into the sky. And so whenever there's a ghost and we display a ghost somewhere in the world, there has to be a very easily accessible menu where you have a list of all the ghosts in the world and you can report, hey, this ghost is doing something bad. And then we have a list online for ourselves that we check the reports. If they're really something doing bad, then we have to do a block list, we have to delete it from the server, and so on and so forth. So no one does this, but you have to have it legally. That's the point. And again, it took us forever to implement and have in there in the system. We planned nothing of that. Okay, and online multiplayer. No one of us did ever program anything with network, so we had no idea about how that works on the technical side. So we, from the beginning, planned the whole online multiplayer system as simple as possible. So it's up to 6 players, they only can play races, there's no collision between the players. So we minimized all the complex stuff down to a minimum because we were really afraid of the networking code. We were using Unity, and I was surprised. I think we had the online multiplayer running in less than a month. It was super fast and it worked. So it was like, yeah, awesome, we're gonna launch, but no. Online multiplayer on consoles is weird because there is not just one button in the game where you press, I want to play multiplayer. You can start and join and invite people all over the system. So this is also something, try that out. If you ever think about doing online multiplayer on consoles, try that out on both consoles, wherever you want to launch, how that really works. Because we missed a lot of features on the consoles at the beginning that we didn't know that even exists, because a lot of that is really hidden, like PlayStation Play Together. I've never seen this button. That's really hidden somewhere, but this is a thing where you can start a game outside of the game, invite people, and then press a button, and for all the people, the game starts, and it should automatically connect into an online session. We didn't implement that because we didn't know it exists, and so that took us a while to get in there. And in Microsoft, you can on Xbox, you can, whenever a game runs, you can open the Xbox menu, just click on a friend and say, I want to play with him now. And then you either, if he's already playing, join his game, start a new game, whatever. So it is very flexible where and how you start a multiplayer game from outside your game. So plan this ahead and get this in there. That took way longer than we thought to do. Yeah, there's voice chat. It's not hard to implement, but it has all the same restrictions as the rest. So age restrictions, blockable by users, all that stuff, and you have to think about, and it takes also just a long time we didn't plan for. Okay, and that's it, actually. So we have, I hope, a little bit time of questions. So?
Not really.
Okay, so that's it. But I'm around, and I hope I can answer questions if you find me about everything that's not too deep in the NDA jungle.
Yeah, please find Matthias outside.